Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody and call to order the special board meeting for today. And I'm first going to call on Trustee McCauley to read the land acknowledgement, please.
Thank you, Trustee Hatfield. We acknowledge that we are on land and surrounded by water originally inhabited by indigenous peoples who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within the lands honored by the Wampum Treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape, and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Huron-Wendat peoples in the Three Fires Confederacy, Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis.
Thank you very much. For attendance this afternoon, we have some trustees who weren't available. So Trustee Leclerc, Trustee Cook, and Trustee Buckler. So if we could have a motion to accept those absences. Trustee McCauley and Trustee Chin. All those in support? That's carried. Thank you. A motion to approve the agenda for this special meeting. Moved by Trustee McCauley, supported by Trustee Nelson. All those in support? Any opposed? That's carried. Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest for this meeting? Nope. Seeing none. Just before we get to item F, which is the purpose of the special board meeting, I just wanted to provide a little bit of information on this. So it's our hope that we don't have to resort to special board meetings on a regular basis when things like this come up. But in this case, the deadline for submission was October 8th, and we have an administrative procedure that prevents the staff from submitting subject to board approval at the next regular board meeting. So, because I did check this with our legal counsel, and if we didn't have that administrative procedure in place, we could have allowed staff to submit by the deadline with the note that it's been reviewed by the standing committee, but is subject to final board approval on October 21st. But because we have that admin procedure in place, that prevented us from doing that. So administration is going to look at some of those old procedures to see if we could, there aren't very many of them, but there are a few where we may be able to adjust the language, amend the language so that we wouldn't have to then have a special board meeting, but we could wait a couple weeks and just handle it at a regularly scheduled meeting. So I wanted to explain that because, it isn't always convenient for everybody to just drop everything and run in for a special board meeting. So that's not really the way that we want to conduct our business. So we're going to look at cleaning that up through our admin procedures. So with that, we do have a report from the Finance and Facility Service Committee with a recommendation. So I'm looking to put that recommendation on the floor. Trustee McCauley and Trustee Chin. And now it's open for comments. Perhaps Trustee Armstrong, would you like to speak again? Sorry when that happens, because that's not what you want to be. Superintendent Armstrong, did you want to make some general comments first before we go to trustees?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I'll repeat what I said at the Finance and Facility Services Committee. As suggested, the Ministry of Education announced the 25-26 Capital Priorities Program on September the 8th, with submissions due to the ministry no later than October the 8th. Similar to prior years, school boards have been invited to submit business cases to address their most urgent pupil accommodation needs. Administration has worked extensively with Watson and Associates to identify and assess the viability of business cases to meet accommodation pressures facing the board. 3 business cases with childcare additions are outlined in the board memo, and they're being proposed for submission to the ministry. The first priority is a 429 pupil place replacement school for Gosfield North Public School with an integrated childcare center with 73 licensed spaces. The second priority is a 55 pupil place addition for Gosfield North Public School, again with an integrated childcare center with 73 licensed spaces. And the third priority is a 392 pupil place replacement school for MD Benny Public School, again with an integrated childcare center with 73 licensed spaces. The Capital Priorities Program requirements are very extensive. They require written business cases, including the scope of work, project milestones, and a demonstration of why alternatives are not feasible. Site identification, design plans, and a Class D cost estimate must also be submitted. Submissions are also to include the Excel templates that are prepared by the Ministry of Education. That includes the space template, 10-year enrollment projections, and joint childcare submissions with the city, should that be necessary in your business cases. Schematic designs for the school building are also required using the Ministry of Education's design catalog or a recent school repeat design that's been tendered can also has to be provided. And lastly, the long-term growth needs template linked to the Ontario Housing Action Plan and municipal growth plans must also be submitted. New for 2025-26, business cases for school submissions that have high renewal needs and high facility condition indexes are only eligible under this program if the facility condition relates to imminent health and safety issues. Also, for school boards that are submitting a repeat submission from the prior year, they have a short form submission. Because our board did not submit any capital priorities for 24-25, we have to do the full, complete, long submission for our business cases. And of course, your board report includes the Facility Services, Finance and Facility Services Committee report. It includes all of the details regarding these business cases, including a rolling report of the 5 years of capital business case submissions that have been made to the ministry. And the growth needs template was also included in there, as well as the space template. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee McKinley, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Excuse me. As I go through the business cases, and from my memory as well, there's a school not on our list today that has been on our list several other times, and in fact, sometimes ranked even higher than both MD Benny or Gosfield in those previous years. So I'm just wondering why Marlborough, at going to be 97 years, wouldn't be on this list when it has been previously. Thank you.
Superintendent Armstrong?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Actually, it was on our list. We originally were proposing a replacement school for Marlborough Public School on the existing site. And we did the work for that over the summer. Then the Ministry of Education announced their capital priority program on September the 8th, and schools with high facility condition indexes cannot be considered an eligible project under this program unless it has an imminent health and safety requirement, and we can't make that argument for that school. So it's unfortunate. So that's why we had to actually remove that as an item to consider. I can tell you I have been very vocal with the Ministry of Education about these capital priority programs. The ministry has shown some reluctance about replacement schools. We still continue to submit them, as you can see, as we're doing today, because it's coupled, obviously, with pupil accommodation pressures. But it's challenging when we have to use school condition improvement or school renewal funding like we're doing with Forest Glade Public School to try and fix spaces. And we're trying to get the ministry to be a little bit more open with respect to what they would consider an eligible project.
Supplemental?
Yeah, to that, I guess. Has Marlborough been designated heritage site, or is it just on the registry? Because I believe there's a difference.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. The administration has met with the City of Windsor. The City of Windsor has listed 8 of the school board's properties, including Marlborough, and there is an intention to move very quickly to have these properties designated by the end of the year. So Marlborough will, it would appear, be a heritage designated facility, which would make it very difficult for the school board. Not impossible, it would be very challenging for the school board to make improvements to that school site and that facility without a great deal more expense, and we would require the permission of the City of Windsor in terms of the work that's being done in order to ensure that the elements that are being identified as unique to that site are preserved and maintained. I will also be bringing a report forward to the Finance and Facility Services Committee explaining the issue with those 8 sites so that the committee is familiar with what is being proposed by the city.
Thank you. Trustee Burgess, you have a question?
Actually, I have comments and questions, plural. Just to your preamble, I wanted to make a comment before anything. You referred to our procedure as wanting to clean it up procedurally so that we didn't have to call a special meeting of the board, special meetings of the board being exceptional. And obviously more difficult if they're given advance notice that is very short to make arrangements in, our lives in order to attend. I do want to say, though, however, with our new bylaws, we do have sometimes occurrences like we have today, where a committee is meeting and there are 2 people. We have had already precedent where there have been 2 people at a committee, each voting differently. And because each voting differently defeated the motion, I don't want to not be in the loop about something like this. It may be looked at as more operational, and you want to kind of have only the staff look at it, and we don't not need a full ratification of the idea before it's submitted. Okay, I'm just saying you may. I didn't know if you did. So what I'm saying is I don't look at cleaning up the procedure of letting something go as a facility recommendation versus a whole board recommendation as something that's necessarily cleaning it up when only one person can.
Sorry, I think
defeat
you
it.
interpreted what I said. What it is that it would wait in this case. Instead of having to do it before October 8th, it would go to our board meeting on October 21st for the board to consider it, so that we could say to the ministry, this is subject to board approval on October 21st at their next regular meeting. We're not cutting out that step. It's just that we have to send something before October 8th. So the something would be, this is what we're proposing subject to board approval.
So I think maybe we both misunderstood. I understood that part. What I'm saying is I'm making a hypothetical. 2 people are in attendance at a special committee meeting prior to a special board meeting. Those 2 people on the special committee meeting have the opportunity to vote differently. The motion can be defeated. It doesn't go forward. So, Madam Chair, that has happened. So what I'm saying is, while I know the intention is to clean up our procedures, the way it's written, our procedures, quorum is 2 out of 3. So therefore, if they vote differently, this doesn't appear on on a thing
So
going
there,
forward.
there wouldn't be a need for a special committee meeting either. This would have, the regularly scheduled finance committee meeting is next week. Right. We wouldn't have had to have a special meeting.
I understand
So, the impact
that. I
to
guess maybe what I'll
attendance
say
might
is,
not be the same.
okay, so
Yeah.
what I guess the other thing I'll just add, because I do want to get to the questions, is that I'm still not really believing that we're going to have long timelines before the ministry wants us to submit a large thing, and it's a big decision as far as capital planning goes. And so I think, and from a governance perspective, it would be good to be in the loop. So I don't see that the ministry is necessarily going to go and give us a regular longer lead time, more runway. So I'm just saying, I don't think that that it won't happen again. So if I could get to a question, I'm wondering if, since we didn't do anything last year as far as submission, we do have one this year. If, things go forward, is there any bonus, do you think, in hindsight, to submitting something, even though it's something that might be not accepted, so that it would make us eligible for doing the short form versus going through the whole thing again?
I'll just start by saying there's a lot of work that goes into making the proposals, and I'm not sure that would be the best use of staff time when they know that they have no shot at being successful. But I'll let perhaps the director and the superintendent answer that question.
So through you, Madam Chair, I'll start, and Superintendent Armstrong or Superintendent Allender can add in. Last year, we were clear as to the reasons why we weren't submitting, is because we needed the year to work with Watson to have ground set of where are we, what have we put forward in the past. We had made the decision with Forest Glade internally to take care of that. I can't speak for future because I don't know what we would come forward with or not come forward with. I can't speak to, is the ministry going to change parameters again and make them even more restrictive? I would, in defense of my staff, not want them to have to do work knowing full well it's not going to go forward. To complete the long form, to be able to do the short form the next year, why not just do the long form when you're really confident that you are putting a successful business case forward, not just for the sake of putting it forward? But I'll let the superintendent speak if they'd like.
Can I ask whether the short form wasn't available last year, was it? No, it wasn't an option, because we have had Gosfield North on there lots of times. So I'm wondering if a short form would have been able to be done the year before. Anyway.
To you, Madam Chair, the value of the short form was just for those boards that were repeating a submission from last year, just to be able, the work effectively has been done. So it was just a matter of simplifying that resubmission process. We try to be very thoughtful and deliberate when we're making those business case submissions. Yes, it's a lot of work. There were only 4 weeks. We had a business case we were working on in the summer and had to drop it because of the change of the ministry guidelines. But there's also cost to this too. We have to pay architects and cost consultants to help us with the space templates, with the drawings, the designs, and the Class D cost estimate. And so we're financially challenged right now as a board, and we have to be really smart in terms of how we're using board funding. And so when we're going to make the business case, we also want them to be ones that we think are going to be successful, and we're going to spend the money the right way.
Other trustee questions for the first time? Nope. Okay, Trustee McKinley.
Just wondering, with hearing Watson and all that, it had me, while I was reading this report, think about accommodation reports and wondering when we might see an updated accommodation report to the whole board. Do we know?
Looking to Superintendent, I wonder, but the last one that the board received was up to and including 2029, I want to say. 2034. So you have that report that was the most recent one that was given to you. It was inclusive for 10 years. So if you'd like administration to provide the exact same report, we'd be happy to do that, but it's right. So that's why we did an entire year's worth of work with Watson and Associates to come up with a long range plan. And that's what a long-term accommodation plan, that's exactly what it means. It's long-term. It's not year by year, which politely I'll say is what we did in the past. And that doesn't work year by year. You have to plan long range. So we did a 10-year plan that was presented to trustees last year, I think, 2024, 2023.
Are there any other questions before we go to the vote? Trustee Burgess?
I do have a couple of questions of clarification and questions. So previously, any advocacy for three-story designs were kiboshed. They were on just immediately. Because they are attractive in that they're a smaller footprint. They are more expensive in that, foundations and elevators and all that stuff. But it seems like twice here we have three-story designs. I understand the reasons for it. While to keep, if you can do it on site, so I'm thinking sort of like when Maplewood and Essex Public, if you can rebuild on the site, that's great. So you don't interrupt the operations of the school except for part of the field. But what changed? What changed at the ministry that in the catalog all of a sudden a three-story design became acceptable? Because that's really sincerely what we wanted for Erie Migration. It's what we wanted for Tecumseh Vista. It was what we had approved at Benson renewal when that was a go. But they were all kibosh. So what has happened?
Do we know what's going on in the head of the people at the ministry on that?
Through Madam Chair, I could only guess. I mean, what's in the ministry's design catalog are designs that have been built by other school boards so that the square footage cost is relatively known. They've proven to be successful. So somebody somewhere along the way clearly got that design approved through the ministry, and now it's being promoted as part of the design catalog. And because we didn't submit anything last year, we don't have a new school design, right? That's proven for purposes of the ministry. So we have to refer to the catalog, and that was the best selection for these two school sites.
Do you have another question?
Please understand, I'm happy for that acceptance that it's in the catalog.
Mm-hmm.
I just the response we got was we tried and it was no. So I'm wondering how they got it through. The other thing, there's another question, and I have one for clarification. The engagement piece. Everybody I had an opportunity to speak with, or not really, or send messages to, in Gosfield North had no idea that they were on the radar again, as far as getting the Porta Pack, renewed, et cetera, and the possibility of maybe portables on site or whatever, and a new school, and certainly not a three-story design or anything like that. So what have we done with the community in order to engage them to know that this is a submission that we're making on their behalf?
Would like to speak to that? Anybody? We have Trustee Allender and then Trustee Armstrong. I mean, sorry. Superintendent Allender and Superintendent Armstrong.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. The engagement that usually takes place in past history has been once it goes through committee, once it comes through here, then community is informed about it. And then once it goes to ministry, and if it's accepted, then we have our community meetings and share the information with them at that point in time, and then it comes back here again after suggestions are made.
If I might add too, the reality is it's a 4-week timeline for us to follow. We're not consolidating or closing any of these spaces. We're actually going to build new on the existing site, so we're not asking families to move or change boundaries or things along those lines. Doesn't, it's not a reason why we wouldn't consult for those reasons. But part of it too is that there's a lot of other factors that go into making these determinations. I mean, we're working with Watson. We're looking at the utilization rates in those, not just the school, Gosfield North as an example, but all of the surrounding schools in that area. And we have to be able to look at the 5-year growth rate for enrollment and a 10-year projection. And we have to hit a certain target for these projects to even meet the ministry's eligibility criteria. The community wouldn't necessarily know that. Clearly, we're taking a look at the portables and the number of portables that are on a school site, how long they've been on a school site. Does it warrant that this is really not a temporary accommodation anymore, but it's more permanent? We do look at facility condition, even though the ministry says we shouldn't. I mean, the porta pack that's at that school site is not good. I'll just leave it at that. So there's a lot of things that we actually consider when we're making those recommendations, and certainly as Superintendent Allwender has indicated, when it comes to the design and should we be successful, then we'll engage the community, but we're hopeful that they will embrace it. Again, because it's going on the existing school site and we're not making changes to the families that way.
And if I can just add too, I don't recall a time where we've ever gone to the community prior to. There's a risk if the board doesn't approve, and we've gone out to a community and consulted with them, and then it doesn't pass at the board, which is a tension between administration and the board, and we've now upset a community thinking there's a possibility, yet the board didn't approve it. I think it's a substantial risk to go out to communities, and then community A says, why weren't we consulted? Why was community B? So that's why I believe we've always done it after board approval, once we know we're able to move forward with it.
Supplemental?
Well, and one last question for clarification. The only thing is we hardly ever submit a design for a school or something like that. That's something new, and that usually has had some consultation. So it's not the same procedure at all. In the engagement that we have had, this is a new process as far as what we're engaging in prior to or afterwards. So this is public, so people know. They just kind of went, oh, what? I know, I haven't heard anything. So, and I certainly hadn't. So the other thing I wanted to just bring to the attention is that because there's a space template, we've seen those before, they've been submitted, and or any kind of design. Gosfield North has had an ongoing concern for kiss and ride and traffic for a long time with the childcare spaces and the facilities. If we're building something new, I hope, because we don't have anything before us, that the submission also recognizes that, because that has been a hazard. When you talk about health and safety, it has been a hazard. And the cops in the area know that too. So just that. I have a question for clarification, though.
Let Superintendent Armstrong respond first.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify that should we be successful with this business case, the board still has, or administration will still bring forward the design and the budget of the school to the board for approval. We still need to do that. And that will happen after we've already gone to the community and done community consultation as well. So I just don't want anyone to be under the impression that we're kind of sneaking things through. That's not what we're doing. And the space templates, quite honestly, they're ministry-driven spreadsheets, and what they really do is they help us identify the number of classrooms, how many staff rooms, how many washrooms do we need, and what's the square footage of them. It doesn't really explain or express the actual underlying design. So I just wanted to clear that up.
And I think that I have a question of clarification. I don't know if anybody else has anything.
Okay, one more.
And I thank you for that. I also want to say thank you for the space template to see that there's an instrumental music room, because that's very important at Gosfield North, and not every school has one. So I appreciate understanding the heritage of the school. So it's in the Appendix B long-term growth templates, And I don't know how I just never saw it. Under secondary, it says Windsor, then West Essex and East Essex. Even though it has a heading on the other side of municipality, I'm assuming that means county. And I'm wondering, what is the definition of West Essex and what is the definition of East Essex? Appendix B, first page, under secondary.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I would need to go back to Watson to get that clarification. My interpretation is, no, I'm not going to interpret. I need to go back and get the clarification.
I'm thinking, just because of the numbers, you can see the disparate numbers there. I'm thinking that it's, LaSalle, Amherstburg, like the denser whatever. But I would like to know which municipalities are actually, is it full municipalities or is it a road?
Superintendent, I wonder.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to mention too, in talks with Watson over the last, I don't know how many years now it's been, what they sometimes do is when they're doing the bigger scheme, the grand scheme of any kind of accommodation goes, they don't want to just narrow it to specific schools, so they'll call it a certain area instead.
Is there any other trustee for the first time that might have a question? No, seeing none, I'm now going to call for the vote. All those in support? Any opposed? That's passed. Thank you very much. It was a good amount of work today. I thank everybody for their attention. We've now reached the end of our approved agenda. So I'll declare this special meeting adjourned. And then just mention that our regularly scheduled meeting is Tuesday, October 21st. Okay, thank you, everybody.